The following program contains names, places, and events that have been anonymized or fictionalized for the purposes of protection and safety. The following program is provided for entertainment purposes only, and any commentary from the hosts are strictly conjecture and should not be held as making any definitive statements about the truth or identity of any particular individuals or circumstances. If you or a loved one are involved in an abusive relationship, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 for support.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Mackenzie. Are you losing your mind today?
So I am, because if you guys are following us on social, you've heard who's going to be on the show today. And this is someone whose story I have followed since the very beginning. And I really love the heroism and the courage that this woman showed in this story. So we're talking to Terra Newell, who
Woo!
is, that's
badass,
how I feel right now.
Badass Terra Newell.
Total badass. So Terra Newell is the survivor of the violent attack from Dirty John Meehan. So I don't, if you've heard of Dirty John, this is the story. You've probably seen it on, the Netflix or the podcast.
Yeah.
People magazine, literally anywhere. So this has been an ongoing story for the last 7 years. And it spoke to me just because of her courage and her bravery.
Her femtuition.
Yeah. This was her mom's boyfriend that she kind of had this gut feeling. She had this femtuition that just wouldn't go away. Her and her sister, they knew something was wrong, and they tried to say it, but how do you tell someone you love? I couldn't even imagine being in a position where you have to kind of you have this gut feeling. Anyways, so she's the OG Dogfish victim. This is the original OG Dogfish story. And it's just a great representation of how dangerous and serious these situations can get.
For anyone who doesn't know the story, I encourage you to look into it just independently, because there's so much more than we could cover in one episode. They have a whole podcast about all of the things that Dirty John did and his background. And he's despicable. This is a heavy one because it got, violent, and a lot of our stories, thankfully, do not. So just be prepared for that. But yeah, I think it was also really interesting. I loved getting to talk to her. It's different to hear it from the voice of the woman who went through it and hear about the other women in the story. And I think it's so important to hear that perspective, as much as we love it, not hating on journalists, but I want to hear from the people who survived it and who are there to empower the rest of us.
That's one thing that I was going to mention too, is that there's a whole, everything's Dirty John, Dirty John, Dirty John. But what about this incredible woman who survived his attack? I'm so excited to hear from her own words. I want to put the spotlight on her. I want to showcase how brave and how strong and how amazing she is. And I don't care about Dirty John whatever, but everything is so focused on Dirty John. But what about the victims? What about the survivors? And so are you guys ready to hear from this incredible survivor herself? Because I am.
I am too.
And also, you guys, so this was when I went to LA and we were in the studio, and I'm so sorry, but we kept kicking the microphones. They had this velvet couch, and it's a half circle, and there's a little round coffee table. It's so cute, right? But we kept kicking the microphones. So every time it you hear a big boom or something, it's just us being ridiculous. I'm really sorry. So
we're very
also
fidgety. I don't know how to sit in a chair, and I really don't.
We are children. So anyways, that's what you hear is the pounding and the banging on the mics is because we were kicking them. So sorry, but let's get going. I'm excited.
Yay! We are so excited that you're here.
Thank you so much for hopping on. I am such a fangirl of you. I am just so excited that you're here.
Oh, that is so sweet. Thank you for having me.
Why don't we start by having you just break down what happened to you? I'm sure a lot of people do know the story, but for those who don't, and even those who do, we want to hear what went down from your perspective.
Okay. Hi, I'm Terra Newell. I am the survivor of Dirty John Meehan. Dirty John was this guy that my mom ended up with. She got into a relationship with him, ended up marrying him, didn't know he was a con artist. He was a serial con artist, and eventually he ended up coming after me and trying to kill me, and I killed him in self-defense. My mom and John met on a dating website called Our Time, and then she started to have this real whirlwind romance with him. Everything was just perfect. You know, he claimed to be a doctor. He was just bringing her coffee every single day. He was just the perfect man at first. And
they always are.
Right? Well, just like when someone's getting love bombed, you're just like, wow, I've never felt this way before. This is amazing.
That's so nice.
Right? And then he was carrying her purse, which like now I think that's weird, but then my boyfriend will sometimes do that for me.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Someone to carry stuff for me.
Right? And then it was just like, he was uber like always on point at the beginning. And I didn't meet him until my sister actually started to have a lot of issues with him. And so my sister was like, he's a scumbag. Something's going on with him. He's a grifter.
How old were you and your sister whenever your mom started dating John?
I was 24. She was 25.
Babies.
Yeah. So my sister expressed her concerns, and my mom's response was, I need to move and get my own place and create boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And take her space and time
Yes.
to learn about the relationship.
Yeah.
It sounds like she was like doing a lot of things right.
In a sense, but here's the thing. Her therapist was telling her, create boundaries with your kids. And then that was able for him to come in more so.
Oh, I thought you were saying like create boundaries with John. You meant with the kids. Never mind.
With the kids.
I take back what I said.
Well, no, you're correct
There
in
was
that.
some
She
balance,
did need
yeah.
to have boundaries with us.
Okay.
And we've worked a lot on our boundaries since. But unfortunately, that created that further divide where he was able to isolate my mom away from us. So she goes and she moves, and she was claiming she wasn't moving in with him. But when I went to go help her move and I stayed with her, I could see that his stuff was there.
Oh.
And I wasn't snooping or anything. I was just like being her daughter and going in,
It's in
Your
plain sight.
family.
It's in plain sight.
yeah. And then like the room I was staying in, that's where he had his box of like stuff.
Mhm.
And then right on top of the box was a nursing certificate. And I didn't think anything of that because I was just like, my thought was like, he's already moving in. Like there's his stuff. I didn't see the nursing certificate and be like, he's not a doctor.
So explain to us the whole thing with the nursing certificate. What did he tell your mom that he did for a living?
So he was an anesthesiologist.
Yeah, which is a doctor, which requires a medical degree that is not just nursing certificate.
Well, and then here's something different too. He did get his nursing license, but he also wasn't it wasn't legal. Like
He didn't have his like updated license or something, or I don't know.
Well, he lost it because he sold drugs to people.
That'll do it.
Yeah. So she literally moved in with him, but like tried to be nonchalant about it. And then I went back to Vegas because I was living in Vegas at the time. Came back. It was the day before Thanksgiving. I did all the grocery shopping for her and everything. And then I was talking to my hairdresser, who's also my mom's hairdresser, my sister's hairdresser, and then she did John's hair recently. And she was giving us the lowdown about him and saying something was up.
I kind of love that because hairdressers are always the ones. They know everything. Okay, so what did she say?
So she was like, he's using your mom's car. He's doing this. He's doing that. And that's when I got a text message from my mom saying that she was at the hospital with John for his arm hurting. And I was like, he's a drug addict.
Yes. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Because like I've had many friends that had those issues. And the one thing they would always do is end up in the hospital with like their arm or their leg or something hurting because they're shooting up so much drugs that like your veins get jacked up at times.
So you're piecing things together, knowing that this guy's not the greatest for your mom.
Yes.
And this is just the beginning.
Yeah. And then I end up getting into a fight with him because my mom comes into the doorway of the room that we're staying in. And then I'm just being like, why is he using your car? Why is he doing this? He comes up right behind her and starts screaming at me and is like, Tara, you just want your mom for yourself. And then I was like, no, John, that's what you want. There was a lot of FUs thrown around. And then at one point, my mom kind of looks at like my boyfriend that's there. And she's like, do you feel the same way? And then he confirms like there's something not right here. And so we pack up our stuff. We go to my sister's house. And I remember my sister getting text messages from my mom's phone saying you should jump off of the building head first would be preferred.
Oh my God.
John would give my mom sleeping pills when a big fight would happen. And so my mom would fall asleep and then he would take her phone and pretend to be her and text us.
Ah, that's terrible.
And then probably delete them and deny it. Oh my God. So y'all knew early and your mom is in love and he's also turning her against you.
So after that, like my mom ends up leaving him once because my family hired a private investigator. And he actually was able to bring my mom to a lawyer. And the lawyer told her that all the stuff that the private investigator found was not him.
It was somebody else with the same name.
Yes. And so she believes him and then she gets back into this relationship with him. It takes an average of someone 7 times to leave that abusive relationship. And so she went back.
Now, at this point, when he's with your mom and you guys are trying to, like, I guess even before and after you were trying to make your case, like, this guy's not good, was he going to work every day? Like, what was he doing? What was, like, how was she not seeing it, I guess?
So I have to just say it's illegal to put trackers on people's cars before I say this.
And we would never do that ever.
This is an entertainment podcast. Everything is entertainment only.
Yeah, so I would go and meet with my mom, and then I would text my sister where we were at, and then she would go put it under her car. And then she would gather the information where the car was going and stuff. And then we could figure out when he had the car because he would go to several different doctors' offices. And we didn't really know exactly what he was doing, but I think he was either selling drugs or getting drugs. And then, like, you know, that whole shebang. He was being a grifter, you know?
Yeah.
And so...
and wearing the same scrubs.
Oh, yes.
Every day,
right?
Yes.
And Jacqueline actually worked for a plastic surgeon office. So she knew like a little bit of the background of...
And Jacqueline is?
My sister. Mm-hmm. She is actually the one that like hired the private investigator. She's the one that put the trackers under her car and got all the information.
Armchair sleuth.
Armchair sleuth.
Yes. But she called Tanya at one point.
Tanya's his ex-wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tanya didn't respond or anything, which was kind of a bummer for us, but I do understand like safety is
wanting
a huge
to,
thing. Yeah.
Like, I don't want, like, leave me out of it. I'm done.
Yeah. And we just like, no one would help us. We knew he was dangerous, and we also speculated that he was poisoning my mom at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And you need evidence.
Right? So we were like, okay, we got to contact other women and see like who he is. But all the other women didn't want to come and help us until like the show comes out, which I understand because he's dead now. He's not going to come after them, but it sucks for us.
Yeah. So what happens next?
So my mom left him and she left him for good this time. And then I was like getting into my routine again. I was getting back to life. And I planned to go to a Jason Aldean concert. And right before the Jason Aldean concert, I actually went to work that day. But I came back like halfway through at lunch to get like half ready. Like I did the foundation base and then the blush. And so that's why when you see me in my like photo where I'm attacked, like I'm halfway done.
Wait, that you are so one of us, because the fact that you're like, I just want to know, everyone, I didn't do the full face that day. Like, Oh my God.
That is like, that's how you plan. That's how you get it done. Like, I'm going to do half of it now.
Oh, yeah.
Then I can time it just right.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I have 15 minutes to get back and get ready. And then my friend's going to be there. So the day before, he also made a fake call to my work in a French accent. I worked as a dog groomer. It was during feeding time. And so usually I get everyone's information. I just needed to get him off the phone. And I was like, okay, I have a 12 o'clock tomorrow with 2 Rhodesian Ridgebacks. And he knew to say Rhodesian Ridgebacks because he was stalking me on the hikes and on the Back Bay Trail. Yeah. Like, that would have been a better spot to grab me, but
whatever. I mean,
whatever.
What are the dogs going to say?
Right. And so that client was a no-show. He just wanted to get to know my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't work out for him. He shouldn't have booked his dogs because that changed my schedule when they were a no-show. So I went home, and then the gate was broken. I complained about it the day prior. And then I literally pull into the gate, and then there's a guy.
This is an apartment complex, by the way.
And this is like an open garage too. It's like, so it's on the top. And then there's like the bottom garage that's enclosed. So this is like for everyone to see. And I pull into my parking spot, but there's a guy and he's fiddling with a tire iron. He's backed up into the spot. My dog starts going off on him. And I tell my dog, knock it off. And so I get out of the car, I grab my dog, and then he grabs me by the waist, and then he looks me in the eyes and he says, "Do you remember me?" I immediately did remember him. And I tried to run away at first, but I was unable to detach from him. And so I put my purse up to protect my heart and some of the vital organs around there. And that was just natural to me.
Instinct.
And so he wasn't able to get my heart. Oh, and he actually, I think that's when he got me here too, but it didn't go deep enough.
So she put her arm in front of her body to protect herself, and she got stabbed in the arm, and
so I
then
did
under her
this
breast.
with like my purse.
Okay.
Yeah. And my purse was like probably just like a little bit bigger, and it was leather too, so it was like not as like easy to penetrate.
If anyone ever is like justifying a purchase,
now's the time.
Now's the time to like get a nice sturdy purse.
Yeah. I wonder if they make like, the chain purses. Get one of those.
Yeah.
So I am unable to detach from him. He's trying to put his hand over my mouth. I bite it as hard as I can, so he can't really do that. And I end up at this point on my back, and so I fall on my shoulders like hit the ground, and then he's on top of his knees, and then this time I can see the knife, where before when I actually thought I was just getting punched. And so at this point I'm on my back, and then my legs are up, so I'm like pedal kicking, and I'm kicking his arm as it's coming down onto me. My dog also is attacking his ankles.
Good boy.
Right. And then I'm able to actually kick the knife out of his hand. It landed on my right hand side. I'm right-handed. And then I pick it up and I just start wailing on him. And at first, like, I thought I was stabbing him in the front of his shoulder, but I was actually overthrowing it and getting it into his back of his shoulders. And I end up stabbing him in the forehead because I actually gave thought to this. I stabbed him in the forehead, and then I stabbed him in the eye, which is the softest point of entry to the brain. And so that is what I believe made him truly brain dead. So I just scoot away. I start assessing the situation. I toss the knife away from his body, so if he is by any chance can get up, he can't grab it right away. And so I start scooting away. I realize I have a stab wound in my forearm, so I start applying pressure to that to get this bleeding to slow down. And then I see this lady, and she's like, "What can I do to help you?" So I tell her, "Please grab my dog." And then at this point, other people start coming up. Like this guy with dreads came up on a bike, and he gave me a sweater. And I kept repeating myself over and over again because I didn't want to give people too much information, but I also wanted them to know that I didn't do this because
You
it
were
was willy-nilly, you know? So I kept saying, this is my stepdad, he tried to kill me. This is my stepdad, he tried to kill me. This is my stepdad, he tried to kill me. So I kept repeating that over and over again. And I'm also in a state of shock.
Of course.
So that's when the lifeguard girl, Skylar, comes up, and then she's like, I'm Skylar, I'm trained in this situation. And then she gives me a clean towel to wrap around my wound. And it's like, honestly, when people are helping me, I'm like, oh, I'm good.
It's fine. I'm fine.
And then I got my phone. I started calling my mom, and I told her, I'm so sorry. I think I killed your husband. Came down, and I wasn't really able to see her. She was just like behind the tape.
Oh.
And then at this point, I ended up going in the ambulance and going to the hospital. They interrogated me for probably 3 hours. And then the cops also told me that my mom went to go be with John. Yeah, because they told her she had to go identify him. And they told me, yeah, your mom went to go be with her husband.
That's very different things.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, yeah. No, the police treated me like and I get that they have to do certain things.
Yeah.
But they treated me like I was the killer in a sense, too.
They
just
treated you
wasn't
like the
being
criminal.
Yeah.
Innocent until proven, like, and you're also an injured person. I don't know, like.
Well, and I wasn't handcuffed or anything, so I get, like, that part I'm not, like, you know?
Yeah.
But it was still, like, how they handled the situation was terrible.
Especially after what you've learned from the friend that was the security guard you saw at the concert. Like, I feel like there is a lot of, the distance between when they were maybe going to arrest him and when this happened. I mean,
but there's also a statute of limitation. So that was only a couple months for that.
That's a long time to not arrest him and then say we were about to arrest him.
Yeah. And he also went on like a couple different trips during this time too. But here's the thing, like, there's lots of evidence against him that he's a stalker. There was and this is why my case actually never went to trial too, because there was, I believe, like over 20 witnesses on the balconies watching all this happen. So I'm very thankful I had that.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know how many people I meet now where they're like, I'm in jail for self-defense.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
They tell you, oh, man.
That's
like
a nightmare.
Yeah,
it's like one of my worst nightmares.
But I had all these witnesses, and so luckily my case never went to trial, and I don't think I would have been fit to do a trial, to be honest.
No way. That would have been awful.
I want to thank you for sharing so much of this. I mean, fit to do a trial. The fact that you speak so openly about what happened in a way that you want to share it, and it's a good transition into what you've learned and what you can share. We talk a lot about dating, red flags, and obviously I'm sure your mom and you and your whole family, there's red flags feels light for this situation. It's what are the neon things, or also just anything. There's so many people who have gone through something that your family has gone through.
Yeah, you're basically a badass. It's fine. You are the great person to ask about red flags, not only for yourself, but what you saw from the man your mom was dating and what was apparent to you, which may not have been apparent to her because she's wrapped in love. And, so what are some of your top red flags when it comes to dating someone new?
So I'm so skeptical.
Girl, same. I think that's the PI in me, though.
And I'm just like, oh, why is he just wanting to take me out and pick me up? That's weird. I don't think that's a red flag, but I think that that's something that we have to be very careful with.
Yep. Is
meeting people at our house and then going into their car. Or even I have a lot of girlfriends that they're dating these sugar daddies and they're like, send me an Uber. And I've done that too. But you have to be careful. He has your address. Yes.
We were talking about where on first dates or hookups, going back to their place versus going back to your own place. Obviously, it's not necessarily safe either way if you don't know somebody, but I don't like bringing people back to my apartment. And some people think that's weird that I would go to somebody else's, but I almost feel more safe having them not like know my life before I've gotten to build trust. I don't know. There's no right answer because it's scary either way whenever you're trying to hook up.
So that's a really good red flag. It's like if they need to know like where you live right away or something.
If they're
but
like
that's a good dating tip. What else do you have? What are some other recommendations from you?
So these guys sometimes will either have their wallet pay for everything at first and then like not be able to pay for everything anymore, or they literally will go into it right away and be like, I can't pay for this date. And forget their wallet.
You can call me back when you get a job.
So at first they want to impress you, and then it's like, I don't have the money to impress you no more. Your turn.
And John obviously kind of took advantage of your mom's situation, was able to kind of move in with her and all of that. So
did he have any money of his own, or was he was like totally...
So here's the thing about like these grifters.
Yeah.
They're always able to have like money sometimes and be able to get like what they want. And then when they don't have money, it's like, oh, but they always do have some type of money in order to do the grift.
Do you think that was from his drug sales?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure he had excuses for like, oh, it's tied up, or it's a lawsuit, or someone owes me this.
And
like there's always a reason.
And to be clear, it's not necessary for a guy to have a lot of money when you start dating. Like that's not what we're saying, but sometimes they can be misleading, and that misleading is what the red flag is. That's something to look out for
or just trying to move in right away, or trying to get money from you right away.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about your mom's like history prior to this.
I love my mom, but she is a true empath and I do think that there are certain aspects of maybe her growing up in a super traditional fundamentalist church. I think that did have some of like why she got into that relationship, to be honest.
Believes in like the good in everyone and giving a chance, or kind of just...
Not that part, but more so that women need to submit to the men. And like what she grew up was very, very fundamentalist. It was Nazarene Christian. And so that is a very, it's not like going to, say, if you're in Newport Beach, California, like a non-denominational Mariners church.
It was very traditional.
Yes. And so she also grew up with that. And then my grandma even forgave my aunt's husband for murdering her.
What?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So she grew up with that kind of aspect of like, you have to always forgive when people's wrong. Forgiveness is the key. But here's the thing of forgiveness. You don't have to forgive completely and have a relationship with them. You could forgive someone, not have that anger towards that person, but have boundaries.
The boundary.
You can look out for yourself first.
Yes. And so it was really interesting. She had that going on. And then I love my dad, but her and my dad's relationship was a bit toxic. They just were not meant for each other. And my mom also was married before that. And that husband actually left her when she was pregnant with her second child.
And that's so sad. Wow. And this is before Dirty John.
Yes.
This is a context that I feel like I don't have from the original Dirty John podcast, which I think is so important. So many of the stories we hear like this, I feel like people deal with that question, why didn't you leave? How did you not know? And this context of where somebody is at in their own experience when they go into a situation like this, and why they might be more vulnerable to manipulation. It's just always so nuanced. There's just always more there that I feel like we skip over, and then we blame the victim a lot. It makes sense that you are quicker to get married, maybe, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I might pull up a list of like the trauma bonding.
We love a list.
Because like this is what these type of people do.
Yeah.
This is how they get you coercively controlled in the relationship.
Yep. Trauma bonding is an interesting concept also, because that's like
taking your vulnerability.
Yes.
Yeah. And connecting with someone else on that level. Go ahead with your list.
I like trauma bonding with y'all, but that's different.
Well, there's two different types of trauma bonding. There's the trauma bonding where you're bonded to this person because you guys experience trauma, similar trauma, or like you're just bonded because like you guys are like in a dark place, you know? And then there's the trauma bonding that actually happens with the 7 stages that these abusers will do to get their
control.
Yeah, their control and their significant other involved, and where they're not able to leave that relationship. And so trauma bonding is an attachment that an abuser creates using different tactics to get their romantic partner glued into the relationship, where they can feel trapped and locked into a relationship. And there are 7 stages of the trauma bonding. There's love bombing first, which is like what he would do with like his drinks, getting her food, carry her purse and everything.
Being so sweet.
Yeah.
The perfect Prince Charming.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that's part of like also the trust and dependency, like getting her to depend on him. Oh, I could do this for you. I could do that. And so now you're like, oh, I don't have time in my day to get that smoothie even. And also he wanted to gain access to her finances because he was like, I want to help you with your business. I want to get things, you know, this is all wrong. And they'll tell you like the hypercriticism, that's the 3rd stage, where like say these like low blow comments, say like, oh my gosh, you look really great today, but you could lose 5 pounds.
Yeah.
It's almost like the negging, flirting.
Yes, the negging.
Concept. Yeah. Where you almost, then their validation becomes even more valuable.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to seek it even more.
Yeah.
Ugh,
yes.
That's awful.
And then it goes into the gaslighting, like, oh, this is weird. Like, why are you driving his car today? Or why are you doing this? Why did you get a letter from a prison mate? And then him gaslighting her and being like, that's none of your business. This is
that didn't happen.
Yeah,
what
that didn't happen.
You opened my mail. You're the problem.
Yes. Yeah. And he told her, he was like, that's a federal offense.
Just turning it on her.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then there's the resigning of control. So in this instance, this is where he was like, you're not allowed to see your kids. This is where he creates all the rules for her.
Wow.
And then she's feeling like if she goes and sees like my sister, he's made threats to dump her at the bottom of the ocean. So that could happen.
Oh my God.
Yes. And then it goes into the next stage where it's the loss of self, where you've kind of lost like your friend groups, everything, and now you don't know what to do.
You're isolated.
Yeah, you're isolated. And then it goes into the addiction stage where you're addicted to these highs and lows from the relationship because, you know, with the oxytocins, that's creating like the high effect where your body is like chemically connected to him. And then when you haven't gotten that for a minute, it might be because he's like using it as like a withholding
and then
mechanism.
When you get so low, that high feels so good again. The further low you go, the higher you get. It's
yeah.
I am so glad you just shared that because when someone's telling a story and they get that, why didn't you leave him? Like, why didn't you know? I know in my core that that's not that simple, but this like writes it in black and white and gives an answer to that, where it's such a psychological process that makes sense.
Yeah.
Happen to anyone.
I would love for our audience to know where they can find like a more detailed version of your story. Is the Netflix version accurate? Is there something they can read or something you would recommend where if they want to learn more about your story and more details, where can they go to get that?
So the Netflix is not, well, it's scripted TV, so it's not 100% accurate. I say my attack was accurate in the sense I think a really great, I like the Oxygen documentary, The Dirty Truth, because it shows a lot of the women's perspectives. The podcast is great too, but that's super long.
I know. I was like, there's a lot in that podcast. We only have one episode.
Right.
But that's the Dirty John podcast.
Yes. And then I also did a Vice documentary not too long ago talking about the ethics of true crime and like the aftermath of it. And I think that honestly,
that resonates
really,
with us a lot. We really appreciate that. Being ethical in true crime and documenting.
Not exploiting.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're using your story, like you don't have to tell the story. You don't have to tell anything, but you're using it as a survivor for other survivors.
And talk about your podcast, because I know that you are and you will always be associated with Dirty John. But as a woman who is an individual, you are not Dirty John, just like you said. What is the name of your podcast? Tell us what you're doing now.
So it's called the Survivor Squad Podcast. And we interview me and my partner, Collier Landry. He has a crazy true crime story as well, where his mom was murdered by his father. He overheard it. He stood on the stand and he put his dad in jail. And his dad is still incarcerated to this day. So we interview
a survivor of a true crime, or say their daughter or something was murdered. And so they're looking for advocacy. And so that's what we really try to do, is give
a platform.
A platform. And I've had such a big platform for my story that I am appreciative of how it's gotten that awareness out there. But I also want to make sure that I'm letting them come on, share their story from their point of view, and being ethical. I don't want to take their story and tell it out there. I think it's better coming from the horse's mouth.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think that just speaks to you as a person being a survivor, as opposed to someone just storytelling, which is that's why it's another reason I wanted you on this podcast, was because that's something that we like to do too, is bring the women on and let them tell their own story. And then it really allows other women to really feel connected.
Yeah.
Anyone. Yeah.
That's my favorite thing about. So your podcast is we were
the
both
Survivor Squad.
Survivor Squad and Dating Detectives. But like the community that kind of comes out of the woodwork when you start having these conversations. Like when we started, we didn't know how many people would want to come share their story. We had, like, you being here is mind-blowing to us. We're amazed at you.
Yeah, such a big deal to me. But I'm so glad that you have a podcast like that where people can go and listen. So thank you for that. I'm so excited for everyone to learn more about you and your story, just because it was so incredible. Thank you so much for being on our podcast. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, really. You're also just like, can we go eat? Like, I want to hang out.
I know, right?
I'm down.
Anyways, Terra Newell, everybody, thank you so much.
Yeah, go follow her, all the things. We'll put everything in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Did I not tell you that she was a badass? I told you.
Like, more than we even knew. I think it's so cool that she has turned this into what she's turned it into. It's like, she really, what is the saying? Something about like flowers out of shit.
I get the concept, but you're absolutely right. I love that she came here to allow our platform to be one that she shares her story on. So I'm so grateful for her. And also you have to go follow her Instagram, Survivor Squad Pod.
And listen to her
podcast.
Podcast.
It's really good. And also, if you guys have any stories that you want to share with us, you can email us at investigate@datingdetectivepod.com and follow us on the socials. Our Instagram is Dating Detectives Podcast.
And let us know what you thought of this episode. I mean, the thing she shared with us at the end about the stages of, I am so excited to talk to everybody about that, because she's so knowledgeable, and I feel like so many people can relate to so much of what she said, despite the intensity of her story. Terra, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Terra. And thank you guys for listening. We're dying to know what you thought of the episode. Make sure to share our Instagram with a friend. We really appreciate your support. And we love you guys so much. And as always, trust your femtuition.
Hell yeah. I love you, Mackenzie.
I love you. Bye.
Bye.